Hi, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with the Pioneer with me, Kushan Mitra. Today, I am interviewing one of old friend of mine, Adil Jal Darukhanawala. Adil is not only a has a long and storied career in automotive journalism. He's been an automotive journalist since the late 70s. The time I was born, 40 years, and he's also one of India's foremost auto historians and has possibly one of the nicest and most extensive collections of automotive scale models. I've been to Adil's house in Pune. It is incredible, and I believe Adil, you've almost finished your Michael Schumacher collection. That Ligier he drove in one test session. You found that. So, how difficult was it to find that particular model?
Very difficult because model makers don't necessarily make a model of a test session, so
Yep.
to speak. But given the stature of Michael Schumacher, any and everything he did was looked at with a microscope, and it was inevitable that this thing had to be made, and it was made about a few months ago, and I was lucky enough to get a hold of one. Ordered. The pandemic really put me back by about 6-7 months because the model was bought and kept with a friend in the UK. So finally it came to me. So all's well with the world now.
um, in fact, the Nürburgring Grand Prix, Lewis just equaled Michael's number of wins. And I'm assuming if Lewis races in 2021, he will be the first driver to touch 100 wins.
I'm
Uh,
sure about that.
while it is difficult comparing drivers from different eras, and but sort of pander to us journalists also, we try and compare, just like comparing Michael with Ayrton is not necessarily fair, while comparing Ayrton with the PKs and drivers from the
Pro-
70s is also not fair.
Yes,
But
right.
but if and you have one of Michael's tires also in your house, if I recall. Um, um, if you were to compare Lewis and Michael as champion drivers, can you compare them? Who is better? Even though cars are wildly different today, we have hybrids and 1.6 liter cars, no V12s anymore.
Yeah, the most important thing is the crossover. There's an evolution in car design, car technology. Also, earlier you had manual gearboxes. Shift from manual to automatic was one very important thing, which not many give credence to. Everyone talks only engines. Another thing which not many people give credence to, and I remembered this when I was speaking to Narayan Karthikeyan once. He said that the Formula One car was easy to drive, but this Formula Nippon was very difficult to drive. There was a reason for that, not just because it had manual transmission, but because it had no power steering. Today, all the Formula One cars have power steering. It makes life much easier for that. So when you look into all these things, the you go back 20-30 years, you had to tip your hat off to the drivers then because they had to work a lot. Of course today's drivers also have to work a lot, but then they have got assistance from the pits, turn into knob 10, formula 16, this that. Earlier the driver in the cockpit was in his own man. There was
But
nothing there. So I think in that sort of sense, it was a much more pure sport at that point in time.
but then again, I started watching Formula One when Star Sports started broadcasting it. I think it was
94, 90.
yeah, early 90s. At that point of time, cars had a lot of technology. In fact, a lot of technology that we see in passenger cars today, such as active suspension, anti-lock brakes, traction control, were all developed for Formula One cars of that era. And today, while gearboxes are automatic and all of that, drivers don't have several aids that even a cheap and cheerful Indian hatchback would have. So, driving and racing around a circuit is not easy, as we all know.
Oh no, not at all. It looks easy. I have got so many people come to me say, "Give me a car like that, and I'll beat Michael Schumacher." It's easier said than done. So you're very right. It's not easy. It requires innate skill, unbelievable physical fitness.
Yeah.
We can we cannot even last for more than 2 laps at even half the speed which these guys do,
And
because
that's
we are not.
Michael's Indian connection. His trainer was an Indian, right? His
I
Michael's.
know that. I know that. I once was there with Michael Schumacher, courtesy of Marlboro in the late in '99, and I spent a week with the team there, and I saw him at Monza on Thursday. He came across. We were there. We had a small function with him. Friday practice, 2 practice sessions. After that, we were supposed to meet him, but they said the meeting will take place after 2 hours after the second practice session. So we waited. This guy was in the next door to him was a big transporter van, which was his van, the big same articulated truck, and was full of his physical fitness equipment. And he was working out. After the second session, he worked out. He came back fit as a fit. There was not a bead of sweat on him. That's the sort of dedication these guys put to their game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, both of us have driven around many circuits across the world, and I mean, personally, I'm sure you've also done hundreds of laps at the Budh International Circuit. And believe me, after a day of racing at the BIC, I think I've done about 40 or 50 laps one time. I felt absolutely knackered.
Yeah, absolutely. True, 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 true.
And I know you're driving
Driving
fast cars with all
fast,
the.
driving fast is one thing,
Mhm.
but driving flat out for 20, 30 laps at a stretch
Yeah.
takes up. So you can be fast in a straight line. Let's see if you can be fast in the going into the corners, coming out of them in the right gear, braking properly, getting your foot off the brake. It's this. There's as much science and art as there is about physical fitness in driving.
No, in fact, I was just posting some picture of trip we went together. We'd gone to on the BMW 3 Series launch, and we drove at the Algarve circuit, which is going to be
Yes,
used
I know
this weekend.
that. I know that. We were there.
And yes, and on pictures, what the pictures do not tell you is that the picture is just a two-dimensional
Elevation,
picture.
yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
elevation.
elevation changes on that track were, and
Yeah,
what the pictures don't tell you is when you have a German sitting next to you going throttle, 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 where your brain
and
is telling you I should brake.
yeah, true.
So, um, yeah, driving on a track is definitely, I think, people don't realize. And you're talking about stories from 1999, Adil. I mean, this is where you have stories going back into the 50s and the 60s where you've interacted. Also, thanks to you being a member of the Parsi community, and the Parsi community obviously has a long love for the motor car, as we are aware, not just no, and that's not just the Tata family. Um, can you give us an idea of why you think, and you've just done a book on the Mahindra, it's called Timeless Mahindra, where just as the new Thar has been launched. Can you give us an idea why, we in India don't have such a good sense of our own automotive history?
I'd rather like to what you call make another clarifying statement. It's not just about automotive history. We Indians don't give a damn for our country's history, our
Hmm.
heritage, everything.
Hmm.
So automotive is only a very small fragment of that entire thing. So I think that we have always had this thing thrust onto us. We don't have the zeal to know more. We have got one of probably the most vibrant civilizations in the world, and we are not taught that in schools. Why? It starts from there. The most important thing is the British dumbed down this aspect of way of life for Indians. But post independence, we have carried on in the same vein, which I think is disastrous. And it shows right now as to if someone, what you call, I'm saying just one simple fact of life, almost about 1 million of our soldiers fought in the First World War.
True, true.
As many, as much as that number fought in the Second World War. And if it was not for our Indian soldiers in the assault on Europe from Sicily down south, everyone only the glamour is all Dunkirk, but no one understands that we fought from Sicily and we made a splash into Italy from there. Indian soldiers did the bulk of the fighting there, and we
Absolutely.
knocked out those guys. Why are we not celebrating our people?
No, no.
Is it a crime to celebrate our own? I think, see, if you don't, and we have the heroes, we don't like to celebrate our heroes. We like to celebrate, unfortunately, those guys who come in white kurtas, wear white caps, spotlessly clean there. It's a shame, yeah.
No, no, I agree. I've actually been to the Commonwealth graves at Monte Cassino. That
Yes,
is
and that's
thanks
what
to
the
my
battles which the Indian soldiers
yeah,
fought over there.
yeah, and that was thanks to my dear friend Vishnu Shom, whose father was then our ambassador to Italy.
I remember
Vishnu was doing a
your
series on great battles where Indian fought. I think NDTV still has it. I should ask Vishnu about that. And at Monte Cassino, there are, I think, if I remember correctly, about 20 columns, of which in about 15 to 16 columns, you can just see Indian names. Many
yes,
of those names are, of course, soldiers, I mean, from units which eventually went to Pakistan as well, because this was the Royal Indian Army, a pre-partition Indian Army. Uh,
correct,
but
correct.
it is tragic. And Captain Amrinder Singh in Punjab has written extensively about Indian soldiers uh,
I'm aware.
in the First World War, talking about Meningate in Belgium. Raghu Kannad has also done a recent book on this. At least right now, we are talking about this much more than before. But back to my issue, when we don't have a great understanding of history, there are some, and thankfully, there are some very interesting collections of vintage cars still kept in Pune, where you stay. In Ahmedabad, as I discovered last year, that Heritage Auto Museum, which is this really
Big,
insanely good collection,
a humongous collection.
a humongous collection which many Ahmedabadis don't even know exists. It's just there. It's let alone people from outside Ahmedabad. Um,
Very true.
I mean, while India is the world's what we are the world's third largest car
But
market after China and the US.
true.
We still, everything's very modern over here. We don't even appreciate recent car history. Things like the Maruti car or the Maruti van from the early production Maruti.
True.
Because we don't have a sense of history, I guess.
No, I think also one more thing across over there. After independence, everything was done. We modeled our way of life, our governance, our administration as to the controlled way of socialist economies.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever, and I've given the fact that I've been going through very old archives from so many libraries, so many departments in Indian way of life and manufacture. What I found across was every politician from independence onwards to this day terms cars and bikes as examples or items of conspicuous consumption. Even today, our finance minister terms them as sin products. Come on, damn it. The automotive industry contributes 10-12% of the GDP to the country, and we are living on sin. Are we living on sin? So I think that this is not on. And a second problem is, uh, given this thing, since you've got me started on that, our industry body, SAM, is riven with factions. If they were solid and united, they could have what we call held their own and made the government, reasoned with the government. I'm not saying hold the government to ransom or threaten, but they could have reasoned. Today, no, the government only dumps down on the industry every way. How to what you call take it to the cleaners, make it into a fat cash cow for the milkings or for the slaughtering. So I think that our manufacturers themselves have not helped the cause in that sort of vein. Everyone runs to the minister after some new rule has come out and tries to get a sop for his or her company. That's not on. So we have a lot to regret with our behavior, both from the administrative side, the governing side, the manufacturer side. So it's not an ideal world, but still we are still the third or the fourth largest market in the world. So can we now stop looking at living off sin? You and me buy cars. Are we sinners?
No, we're not.
We are not.
No,
So
no, we're not.
maybe we are bring this out to the rest of the world to understand that we are not sinners.
No, I think there needs to be an understanding of by the government that the car industry, the automotive industry in India does support hundreds of thousands of jobs indirectly and directly as well. Um, those jobs have been impacted by the lockdown. Thankfully, some manufacturers are seeing a huge spurt in demand. One of them being Mahindra, about whom we've just done the book. The new Thar has been a rollicking sales success, over 15,000 orders. I have no, I mean, after I've seen the plant at Igatpuri, I have no idea how they'll manage to build 15,000 cars in the very quickly.
It's being built at Nasik now, not
Nasik.
at Igatpuri. Nasik. Igatpuri is the engine plant.
So I don't know how many, if they can manage with that much, but it's a good sign that this is a made in India product. It's a designed in India product. It's a particularly good sign. You know, I'd possibly argue it's more of a midlife crisis vehicle.
Oh, wonderful.
but when doing the research in the book in Mahindra, of course, we lots of things. I mean, I knew the story of Mohammed and Mahindra, which is the how the company
It is
started.
it is Mahindra. It was registered as Mahindra,
Mahindra
not
and
Mohammed.
Mohammed. Okay,
Yeah,
Mahindra and
because
Mohammed.
yeah.
And the other partner, the Muslim partner, went off to Pakistan, Karachi.
Was Ghulam Malik Mohammed, who happened to be the Governor General of Pakistan after he went there. And he was a state guest in India in 1954 or 55, it's there in the book. When he came to India for the Republic Day parade, our government had invited him. And it was a coincidence that the same year, Mahindra started manufacturing the CJ3B completely in India.
And of course, Mahindra has come a long way. I mean, Anand has taken the company a long way in the
Oh,
past
absolutely.
25 years with partnerships. Of course, a couple of them were ill-fated. The first time they tied up with Ford, and then, of course, Renault. Now they're tied up with Ford again, uh, which is interesting.
Rather, Ford is tied up with them now.
Ford is tied up with them. Mahindra is the senior partner in the relationship.
Shoe is on the other foot.
Uh, uh, it shows how long even Mahindra has come. Now that they are the senior partner in this relationship, and as a car maker, how far they've come with their products as well.
Absolutely. No, there's no two ways about it. See, one of the key things which they did, uh, if you look at Mahindra history and not necessarily just go through my book across for that, they did, uh, they stayed faithful to one product they started off with, the CJ3B. That product, and because the government never allowed any capital investments in the 50s, 60s, 70s, because foreign exchange was the big bugbear there. So what they did with this single platform, they cut, widened, lengthened, did everything on that. So this CJ3B platform served them from 1952 to almost 2004. So this is the longest any Jeep model anywhere in the world has ever been what you call in sustained production across over there. So the flat fendered Jeep to remain in the public eye has to be something which you have to thank Mahindra for rather than anyone else. After that, what happened is they had the drawings for the CJ5 which they never utilized till it came time to replace the dies for the CJ3B. So at that time, some two, three engineers on the ground floor, they said, can we, what we call, instead of we're going to make new dies, why don't we make dies of the new of the CJ5, which we have had since the early 60s. That's when the MM540 came into being. It was a good thing. It took the Jeep modernity on by one decade. Then came the Grand Armada, the Armada, and then came the Bolero, one of the most striking success stories, which even till today has contributed to some unheard of success. Dr. Goenka told me that 20 crores was the budget for the Bolero, and I think Mahindra must have earned at least 500 times that amount to date with the Bolero alone. So what I'm saying is, so this was all one strike stuff across it. When Pawan came into the Mahindra fold in the mid 1990s, that's when they started thinking about getting process into the picture. Among the process into the picture was not just process to make a whole new car and what went into it. The Scorpio came in. Scorpio was revolutionary. It was not a perfect product at the time when it came out, but Mahindra was smart enough to play it only in the metros. They needed this urban look to it, urban feel to it. They were all, everyone knew they were rugged machines which Mahindra used to build. But how do we capture the India of the aspirational India of the new age, So they needed to go urban. The Scorpio helped them immensely. And then seeing that if they could do it with the Scorpio, they thought that, okay, we got to what we call invest in our own product development capabilities. MRV came in that. Everyone says research and development. It is about product development per se. Research and development for a product, not fundamental research and development as we know it to be. So this is where an MRV has been responsible, XUV 500, XUV 300, whatever. Of course, there have been absolute sluggards also, the KUV. I don't know why they ever made it.
Same here.
Yeah, the TUV, etc., the Quanto. These all the great cars, but they also had duds as well. That's when they decided that we need to get back to our bloodline, which started off from 1952, the CJ3B. How do we get that bloodline in a more evolved, more modern form, right up to the bang onto the minute? So, what started as this project about 4 years ago, we all know it as a second generation start.
So they've gone back to their roots and they've
They
developed.
configure a car like that, but absolutely modern.
It's absolutely modern. No, I've driven the car. It feels very modern. It's got all the mod cons. It's got an infotainment system. It's got a touch screen. It's got.
My wife told me, when I got the car here, my wife told me, Adil, you have to buy this car. I said, okay. But the first time she told me to buy a car, and when we already have got so many cars in the family. So I said, okay, which one? And she told me, don't buy the hard top, buy the soft top. So I need like the convertible. He says, what did he said? No, this is just for the two of us, she told me. So when my wife can tell me that, I mean to say then the product planners there have really what we call hit it off very strongly there.
No, I have a lot of friends who are looking at the cars. Some people, of course, have resorts up in the mountains. Who, they want petrol cars. If you go to national parks, you have to have a petrol car. But getting onto some things, Adil, you've been writing and driving about cars from when A pillar, the front.
27.
I wanted to ask you, I mean, car safety has also come a very long way since you started. I mean, back in the day, the A pillar, the front pillar of a car that holds the windscreen together, is called the A pillar. So a car has A, B, and C, if you don't know what I'm talking about, viewers. So the A pillar was just this thin, the tiny little strip of metal, literally, which you could bend with your own hands. To today, the A pillar in even a small hatchback being huge. I mean, the size of an elephant's trunk. Let alone that cars were cars like even say a BMW 3 Series from that era would have weighed less than a ton. Today, even something like that weighs close to 2 tons. And while the cars have become much more powerful, how have you seen safety evolve? And is safety still a driving concern for Indian buyers, in your opinion?
It is now gradually coming into focus as one of the key constituents towards buying a car. It's not the first. It may be there in the top 10 or maybe that close to the top 5, but I still don't think it's in the top 5. Uh, when we are looking at the majority of our car buying thing comes in the area around 5 lakhs of rupees or thereabouts, that's where the market really resides. That is one chunk of the market. The chunk of the market from 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs is where safety suddenly becomes more paramount. A lot of people there start getting used configuring safety into their special attributes they are looking at. So if you're looking for the sub 5 lakh rupee thing, I don't think safety is still considered by the buyers that much as those who would buy from 5 lakhs to 10 lakhs. They are, by that time, that guy already has a family, he has a child, he's thinking like that. And once you go over 10 lakhs, safety becomes a very prime factor in the buying decision. So yes, where economics or the pricing is concerned of cars, you definitely will find that getting used to. But yes, today safety is very important in every aspect of the term. And earlier, what was happening was we never had mandated norms for safety. Manufacturers per se did not pursue safety in that sort of sense. Today, we have legislation, and because of legislation, whether a manufacturer likes it or not, he has to deliver a safe product. It's tested, it's there. So I think, yes, sometimes I would prefer the stick on the manufacturers in this aspect, but not to get the stick by terming them a sin city, a sin product. So this is where I think uh, it is very good. And safety, as we go further forward, safety is not just about crash stuff. Safety is also about comfort, convenience, not to be fatigued on long drives. How you step into a car and after 2 hours, how you step out of it. All these things does constitute safety, in my opinion.
Okay, so yes, I agree. Some cars are now giving ventilated seats, which at least in
So
the
very
summer,
important.
in summer
Oh yes,
weather, it does help. Yeah,
absolutely.
it does
I
help
had a
indeed.
heated seats. I didn't want that.
They have, yeah, it's quite strange to have heated seats in Indian weather, no? Um,
Exactly.
uh, Adil, what else have you been doing during the lockdown? Yeah, I mean, I know models have
The,
been tough to come by.
the lockdown was very beneficial to me because it helped me with all the accumulated research for the Mahindra book. I could really fine tune it in that period. So that was really a blessing in disguise for me. It also helped me with research for two other books which are on the anvil, which I am not at liberty to what you call say. One book I'm at liberty to say, that's the second edition of Classics and Thoroughbreds. Uh, and a third book also which is going on, which will come late next year. It's on a century of motor racing in India. Motor racing is my pet subject. So uh, I am what I am because of motor racing. So those things, this the pandemic helped me there. And one more thing happened because we were cooped in. So my personal exercise regime in the house was wonderful. Half an hour on the treadmill, 15 minutes of rest, another half an hour on the exercise cycle, and then another rest for half an hour. So I had this time for myself, which I never used to lavish on me, earlier.
Yeah, we used
So I
to
think
travel so much. I
yes,
mean, I know traveling with you is always a great experience because you're the one who's the total foodie. So while some of us are very conservative with our orders, they don't want to over order. You always can trust Adil to go in for the
over order, but
biggest
you should also
biggest slab of meat, no matter what the animal. Adil will. Adil's omnivore in that sense. He doesn't care about what the animal is. No, and it's great fun traveling with you because sometimes some of us get a bit conservative with what we order, and driving with you also is a great pleasure abroad. Thank you for your time, Adil. I will definitely spend some more time with your book so I don't make mistakes like
do
it's
that. Do that.
Mahindra and Mohammed, as you said. Thank you so much
Yes.
for your time and thank you for attending this.
Thanks a lot, and stay safe and
And
stay healthy.
I will stay safe and healthy.